most of you know that I began my ministry, if you want to call it that, at Winter Park Christian Church with a group of young people, these many years ago. And I have not lost my love for middle schoolers. In fact, 2 summers ago, I directed a church camp in Virginia for kids 3rd through 12th grade, and last summer in Louisiana, I had 7 kids in a faith formation class on Sunday mornings in about that age group preparing for baptism. So one of the icebreakers that I like to use for young people, and sometimes not so young people, is the game Would You Rather? Would you rather? Anybody played Would You Rather? Okay, would you rather? Especially with young people who need to be active with their bodies as well as with their minds, I like to do this with movement. And so we'll pick 2 sides of the room or 2 sides of the parking lot, and I'll say, would you rather have a peanut butter sandwich or a hot dog? And so all the peanut butter people will go on this side and all the hot dog people will go on this side, and invariably there are some people standing right in the middle, clearly between the two. They like both or they like neither. Or people who are closer to the hot dog side or closer to the peanut butter side. It's kind of a range. That's would you rather. And then we call out another one. Would you rather play football or baseball? Would you rather give a speech or sing a song? And so on. We'll do this one time. The idea is kind of just to get kids thinking, but it also helps kids get to know each other. And it reminds us that we're not alone in whatever our preferences are. After all, if you notice that everybody's going over to the football side and you don't want to stand alone, then you suddenly decide you might like football after all, right? It's a game. You don't have to sign up in blood. But when we get to be adults, it's not all just fun and games and would you rather. Because as functioning adults, most of us eventually have to figure out how to get stuff done even though we would rather not. Am I right? Like, I don't know, cleaning the oven or paying the taxes or folding the fitted sheets, right? So let's just do a test, just for fun. And this could be a thought experiment. You don't have to get up and move to opposite sides of the room. But would you rather do the same thing every day or do something new? Would you rather do the same thing or something new? How many people for the same thing?
Depends on the same thing.
Good point. You're going to be somewhere in the middle. Are you a lawyer by chance? Yes. How many on the new side? How many are for new things? Okay, a few of you. How many of you right in the middle with Mr. Marchman? Okay. And Jim? Well, I don't think it'll come as a surprise to you that I love new. I love new things, new people, new experiences. I might actually die if I had to sit in an office at a desk for 8 hours a day. I might. I walk about 4 miles a day in the hospital hallways, which, Bill, I realize is nothing compared to delivering the mail. But I really like opening the door and not knowing who's on the other side. But I have to say that by the time we got to Perkins, we'd been over next to the Pizza Hut for a few months, and then we looped back to the Imperial 55 Center, and then we headed over the mall here, and then we went to Perkins. I was about done with new. I remember saying that Sunday, my whole life is pretty much make it up as you go along, and this seems like a stretch even for me. I also said in this moving around the country thing that I've been doing, if I have to download one more app on my phone and make up one more password for that app, I might have to throw the phone out the window. Too much new. Anybody with me? Too much new, I would rather not. So what do you do with a God who proclaims, the days are surely coming when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah? Our God is doing a new thing. Actually, God seems to love new things. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. Every day a new sunrise. Every day a different set of circumstances. Our God has created a world that is alive, and part of being alive is that we are always changing. You know that if you're not growing, you're dying. If you're not changing, you're already dead. That's just the way God's world works. The seasons change. You may notice summer is fading, fall is upon us. It was completely dark when I was driving to church this morning. The air is getting cooler. Change is in the air that we breathe. Well, we're not just talking about covenants today, we're talking about church. Jeremiah's prophecy is about a new way of living in God's world, and this is the first and the only time that this new covenant language is used in the Old Testament. This is actually the passage from which we get the language to call the New Testament the New Testament. It's the new covenant. Testament is another word for covenant. The original covenant was from Sinai, when God said to Moses' people, "I am the Lord your God." And that covenant, God wrote on stone tablets in the form of laws, better known as the Ten Commandments. But the new covenant, the New Testament, God has written not on stone, but in our hearts. The first covenant was sort of like a true-false quiz. You either loved God with all your heart or you didn't. You either honored your father and mother or you didn't. You either committed adultery, lied, stole, or you did not. True, false. But the new covenant is more like an essay question than a true, false quiz. I don't know about you, but I always loved essay questions because I could talk my way into or out of nearly anything. There's much more wiggle room in an essay question. And the beauty of an essay question test is that it involves real relationship, real buy-in. It's not just right or wrong, it's lived relationship. And so in the new covenant, God says, "I will be your God and you will be my people, and together we're going to figure it out together." The first covenant was written in stone, literal, stone tablets. But the new covenant is written on the hearts of God's people. It's living, breathing. It's a changing document. Well, I think it's important here to note the difference between a covenant and a contract. Covenant and contract. You and I are probably a lot more familiar with the language of contracts. Your job is based on a contract. You agree to do a list of tasks in return for a specific amount of money. It's quid pro quo. You and your employer agree to meet in the middle. That is, you do 50%, you do all the work. And the employer meets you in the middle with the money, right? 50-50. But a covenant is more like getting married. Because if you decide at the wedding, I'll do 50% and my husband will do 50%, well, you're probably 100% going to end up in divorce court. Just saying. Because marriage is about 100% and 100%. You're all in. That's the way God designed covenants. You will be my people and I will be your God. 100%, 100%. That's a covenant. So for us as Christians, the new covenant that Jeremiah speaks about wasn't just the rebuilding of a temple, it was the Church of Jesus Christ. In the Gospels, God is doing a new thing in Jesus. In the book of Acts, God is doing a new thing in establishing the church. At the Lord's table, we quote Jesus when he says, "This cup is the new covenant poured out in my blood." Jesus says to Peter, "You are the rock on which I will build my church." We are the church, friends, ever changing and yet constant, in full covenant partnership with God. But we've been talking about the whole story of God's story of salvation. Salvation history that encompasses our own stories and our community stories and our church's story. So what does it mean to be church together? In the Old Testament, of course, people worshiped God in the temple in Jerusalem, and when that temple was destroyed, it was a big deal. Psalm 137 asks the very important question, how can we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? Because the Israelites understood God to be living in the temple. You had to go to the temple because that's where God was. But what happened when Jesus came was that God became accessible wherever you are, anywhere. All of a sudden, the God of the universe lived and moved among us. God had moved into the neighborhood. Eugene Peterson, in one of his books, tells the story of being a little kid in Montana in the summer when a giant moving truck pulled up in his neighborhood. And you can imagine little kids watching that truck being unloaded, piece by piece and box by box. Peterson still remembered how excited he had been when off the truck came skis and sleds and bicycles, small bicycles. There were children involved in this moving to the new neighborhood. Peterson thought that moving truck was the best thing that had ever happened in his neighborhood. New friends coming. God had moved into the neighborhood. And that's what we celebrate at Advent. Jesus is moving into the neighborhood. It's not just about presents under the tree, it's about presence within the community. The church is the gathered community where God lives because God has chosen to make a home with us, covenanted with us. 1 Corinthians reminds us that the body is one and has many members, and yet all the members of the body, though many, are one body. And Paul says, now, church, you are all the body of Christ, individually members of it. My friend Joe at the hospital, who's the Catholic priest responsible for getting us a piano for the sanctuary, corrected me last week when I was talking about the church, that is the building that we're moving into, and he said, you already have a church, you just don't have a building to put it in. He's right. We already have a church, we just haven't put it in the building yet. Avery and Marsh have a song from the 70s that I think says it pretty well. You may remember this one. The church is not a building. The church is not a steeple. The church is not a resting place. The church is the people. I am the church. You are the church. We are the church together. All who follow Jesus all around the world. Yes, we're the church together. Because God is doing a new thing right here among us. Yes, it has to do with the building. But the church is not the building. The church is the people. You remember. Here's the church. Can you do it with me? Here's the steeple. Open the doors and see what? All the people. You see, I knew you learned something in Sunday school. God is doing a new thing right here among us. And so we persist. We can do no other. Like that widow who was up against a crooked judge, we keep showing up. We're the church. Yes, we have some history, and we can talk more about that history at some point. Like any of us individually, there are some painful memories in our past as a church. Most churches have some oddball clergy along the way. And for at least a couple of churches, I have been that oddball clergy. But it's okay. Because God can use all sorts of things, the good and the bad and the ugly and the oddball, working together for good. The days are surely coming, friends, when God will continue to make new and lasting covenants on the hearts of God's people gathered amongst us to be church. We might have some new folks join us. A few might be oddballs. God created those too, don't forget. We may have to figure out how to get things done in new ways. I might continue to rearrange the chairs every Sunday. We might have a hard time meeting the budget. The pipes might freeze, unlikely, but possible. Kip and I have already worried a little bit about how long the light bulbs in the ceiling in the sanctuary are going to last before we have to get up there and change them. We don't know. But here's what I do know. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. God's mercy never comes to an end. The same God who appeared to Moses in the burning bush is the same God who parted the Red Sea, is the same God who tabernacled in the wilderness, is the same God who dwelt in the temple, is the same God who accompanied the people in exile, is the same God who was born in a stable in Bethlehem, is the same God who triumphed over death on a cross, is the same God next to the Pizza Hut, or in the mall, or in a new sanctuary. For the covenant is written on the hearts of God's people. All praise be to God.